Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and today we are getting into all the nitty-gritty of little things that can make a big difference in your photos. So I'm super excited for this episode, but I did want to say off the top, I know I've had a ton of solo episodes recently. The reason for that, if you guys have been following along with my journey at all, is because I am pregnant, which is awesome, and I'm so excited about it. But I've been dealing with a lot of nausea, so that's one thing. The other side of that is that Zach and I actually struggled with infertility for 3 years pre me getting pregnant, and I was supposed to have surgery in November, and then found out that I was miraculously pregnant like 2 days before surgery. Crazy story. Go check out my episode about that. I think it's called like, Wait, I'm Pregnant. So it should be easy to find if you want to hear kind of more of the journey on that, or go look at my Instagram post to see like a written story of it. But because of that, I didn't have any episodes scheduled in November. I was planning on taking off. So pretty much all of those became solo episodes. So you guys are rocking with me for just these solo episodes, but I do have lots of interviews planned for the new year, and I have lots of them scheduled. So we'll be back to getting to know some guests in our community and getting to hear from other photographers and entrepreneurs out there. But I wanted to kind of let you know before setting up the episode, because it really has just been the two of us chatting, the two of us hanging lately. And while I love that, I think my favorite episodes ever, the ones where I get to chat with people and get to feel encouraged and I'm learning alongside you guys as you listen. But for now, you could just get to hear me yap. It's great. Okay. So yeah, little things that can make a big difference in our photos. And these are little tiny tweaks. Okay. These are just easy wins, things that you can literally start doing today at your next shoot. Well, I guess not today if you don't have a shoot today, but you know what I mean. But it's not buying anything new. And really it's just about noticing things. And I think that when you can notice things, your work just levels up. So for today, we're not going to be talking about specific settings on your camera or anything like that. There's other episodes that you guys can look for that. But for today, I want us to just, again, talk about the things that you can start noticing and tweaking, to create really a whole new image in a lot of ways. So here's the first thing. A first little thing that you can do to make a big difference in your photo is to look at the background first. And what I mean by that is I want you to frame your subject where you actually want them. And really a good example of this is when I was first starting, I had a senior client, and we were in a downtown area of where I used to live in Georgia, and there were a couple dumpsters behind her on the street. And I thought the street was really cool, but there were dumpsters behind her. And I remember afterwards looking at the image and being oh no, because I didn't know how to edit anything out yet. It was before AI generative fill, and I'm oh no, what am I going to do? And so I was trying to dodge and burn this dumpster out. It did not work. It did not look good. And thankfully now we do have AI stuff that makes it easier, but how much better, honestly, is our work when we don't have to use those tools? They're great tools to use when we need them. But if we have an idea of a place that isn't with dumpsters in the background, we should just move our subject slightly. So start with actually where you want your subject before taking the photos. If there are a ton of something that happens in Charleston is a ton of cracks on the cement, could I move the subject to be a little bit closer to the wall so she's not standing on that crack and it's easier to edit out? So there are certain times where of course you're going to want to edit things. That's what we do as photographers, right? But there's a way to have someone stand or a place that they could be in the photo to make the photo look cleaner or better from the get-go and not have to do some of those things. So a good rule of thumb is a cleaner background typically equals cleaner photos. And that's not always the case. Obviously, if you're doing something really cinematic and you want to get some really far away images and there's amazing mountains and there's an amazing landscape, but overall, especially for very timeless senior portraits like I do, the cleaner the background, the cleaner the photos. It feels very simple, and it feels it's really it's not just telling the story of the background, but it's also telling the story of the subject itself. So that's just kind of look at the background first. That's something that we can notice. Okay, second thing. This is a laughable one because I know we should all know this, but it's just true. Give your subject something to do with their hands. Hands are always the thing that makes people freak out for some reason. How many times have you shot like a couple and the guy's like, what do I do with my hands? So having kind of like a running list in your mind of what someone can do with their hands is always a great idea, because every pose is going to be a little bit different with how you direct their bodies, right? But your hands, you can do the same like 5 things with your hands in a session and no one's going to blink an eye. So a couple of those might be to rub the back of your head where the hair is. It could be to hold your jacket. Could be to put your hands in your pockets. That's a great one, especially for guys. Put your hands in your jacket pockets. You can walk forward and, casually have your hands swinging beside you like you normally would. You could fix a necklace. You could pull on your sleeve or your cufflinks if you're a guy. You could do so much with your hands, but just have a little list in your mind that gives you like something to do with those hands. And that way, like, you can help your client to really just feel relaxed in the pose instead of like, I feel super awkward, because relaxed people always photograph better. We know this as photographers, right? Like even for us, when we are in front of a camera, if we don't know what to do, we tense up. But when we feel like we have direction, that's when we're like, okay, we're at ease. We can do this. Okay. The third thing kind of goes along with that as far as like prompting your subject. But the third thing is having simple prompts and then building on them slowly. And this, I think, is something I've definitely taught like photographers as I've trained them to be on my senior collective team, where I have like photographers under me to help photograph my seniors. I've definitely taught them this because as I've observed some of them, they will like give a prompt for a pose all at once. So they'll say like, okay, now I want you to like squat down, turn to the side, put your hands in your pockets. And then, like they'll just say out like all at once. But something that I do is keep it step by step. So we're giving them one simple prompt and then building on it slowly. We're going to say, turn to the side. And then they follow whatever you just said. So they'll turn to the side. Now we're going to squat down. And most of the time I do this with them just to show them. So I'm going to actually move my body to turn to the side, and then they turn to the side. Then I squat down, tell them, they squat down too. Then I put my hands where I want them and tell them to do that too, and they do it. So you're kind of even showing it to them as well, but helping build on it slowly creates a flow, and it really takes the pressure off their brain. So you're not like, unless it's like, you need to sit down on something and show them how to pose. That would be like the only exception to that. But even still, like I'm going to help them to sit exactly where I want them, and then I'll tell them the rest. Like I'm not expecting them to have the pose down perfectly when I'm like explaining it super quickly. So I like thinking about it of like building on it slowly. And like I said, it creates a flow. And I think that the movement of whatever pose you're doing too can look so much more natural because they're not trying to remember like 5 things at once of like, okay, I need to do this now and then I need to do this. So if it's like a movement pose and it's not like, okay, they're turning to the side, then squatting down for this pose and smiling at the camera, maybe it's like I start by having them walk away from me. And so I'm getting the shot of them walking away, and then I yell, okay, now look behind over your shoulder at me. And then they do that. And then I'm like, okay, and ready, 3, 2, 1, run, and throw your hands up in the air. Like I'm guiding them and directing them in the moment. So it helps build on them slowly. Okay, the fourth thing that we can do that's like a little thing that can make a big difference is choosing our angles. So we want to create shape, right? Like angles matter, and maybe it's not like angles as like a Tyra Banks like dramatic pose, but in little small micro adjustments that can create shape with either their subject or you creating a different angle with your own body and your own lens. So a couple ideas for this is like shifting somebody's weight. So having them like slightly rotate their shoulders or pop a knee or lean forward a tiny bit. Maybe they soften their arms or they straighten their elbows. Maybe they tilt their chin just a little bit. And we have to be careful with this because we don't want to be like nitpicky in front of the camera, but also we're going to encourage them so much and hype them up and tell them how beautiful they are. And oh my gosh, this is awesome. But I'm not going to click down on my shutter until I know that that's the photo I want. So they can do their thing and look happy and silly, and I'm encouraging them. And then I'm going to say, all right, bring your chin down just a little bit. And then they do it. And that's when I'm going to click. And for me, like, that's like always better because you're encouraging them and you're making them feel special. But also, we need to know what angle is going to be best so that when they look at the photos, they also feel hyped up. They also feel beautiful. And angles just really matter with that. So those are a couple ideas for your actual subject, but an angle for you is that you could get a side shot, you could get a far away shot, you could get a below shot or an above shot. Like, those things matter because sometimes straight on is really good for like a portrait shot, but sometimes it can also feel flat. Micro angles add depth and I think ultimately add like confidence to a photo because if it's like coming from a good angle, they're going to feel more beautiful in the photos. And that's obviously what it's about when we're taking photos of people, that they would feel confident and beautiful. Well, hey guys, breaking into my own podcast just to pause and say that you need to save the date for my favorite weekend of the entire year, Photo Camp. Photo Camp is my educational content weekend for photographers where we get to grow in community, in creativity, and in coaching. And this year, in 2026, Photo Camp is going to be May 21st through 23rd. It's going to be on the same summer camp that it has been on Seabrook Island, South Carolina, just an hour outside of Charleston, where I live. And pricing is going to be $9.99 for overnight campers or $6.99 for day passers, which will be on May 22nd only. Camp meals are included for all of the campers. And then, of course, if you're an overnight camper, you'll get to stay in a cabin with us with cute little bunk beds, and bedding will be included. It's like one big sleepover. It's awesome. And then, of course, there will be styled shoots. We're going to have 9 styled shoots, including 3 guided shoots where a leader teaches you posing and directing and shooting in real time, and 2 educational sessions to help you grow as a photographer. So that's all for now. Stay tuned for sign up day, but I wanted to make sure you knew so that you could save the date. Now let's get back to the show. Number 5, I love this one. It's actually something that I was taught by a photographer who was teaching me, and I started doing this when I was a very early on beginner photographer, and it's something that has continued to be like my favorite type of shot throughout all of these years, and it's shooting through something. So sometimes we can get like a regular picture, say it's like a senior smiling at the camera, right? We can get that regular picture, but the other thing that we can do is grab something to put like right at the bottom of our lens or the top of our lens and really like frame our lens to get a totally different kind of image of that senior looking at the camera. So it just creates like softness and layers and kind of an elevated look. And even if like your location is boring or simple, like shooting through something can make it feel very artistic and intentional. So right now it's very in with like the cinematic vibe, right? You could shoot through just a hole of a bush and get like a couple twirling in the middle of it, or running on the beach, or running in a field or something. Or you could shoot through, if you are shooting with like a bike, you could shoot through the wheel of the bike to just tell a story with that. But you can also use something like a fractal where you hold it right up to your lens, or you could use something I do a lot is like use hay or like tall grass. If we're shooting in a field, I'll kind of use that to like make it blurry a little bit on the edge of my lens. And it's just something fun. You could use a window frame. I love a good window shot. Those always become like my very favorite shots. But really, like, you can use anything. Someone's shoulder. I used that. I shot a proposal last week, and it was really cool because she was walking up. It was raining. She was walking up with an umbrella, and I shot over her shoulder where you could see the umbrella and her walking, but the groom, or not the groom, I guess, but the fiance now was in focus and like looking at her and smiling and had tears in his eyes. And that was just like a really cool shot that tells a story. So that's always really cool to have to add into your galleries. And it's something that can make it go from like, you know, a very normal gallery to something that's very like complete, and it can make a big difference. Okay, number 6. This one is very small, but it makes a big, big, big difference. And it's just doing a quick hair and outfit check. And like I said, guys, I know that that is so small, but like if the shirt is wrinkly in person, it will also be wrinkly in the image, and you're going to have to edit it, right? Or if the collar is flipped up on a person's jacket, it's going to be flipped up in the image, right? So we're going to fix the tag. We're going to move hair off of the face. We're going to like make sure that it's smoothed down. There's no flyaways. And it takes 3 seconds in the actual shoot, but it saves you from staring at the photo later, having to edit it out and thinking like, why didn't I just fix this in the moment? But sometimes we can like really move quickly in photo shoots. And I understand that there are times where like, obviously this can't happen. You can't do this on a wedding day. I mean, obviously you can for like portraits, but like if you're photographing the event of the wedding, the ceremony, right? Or the reception, you're not going to go up to somebody and like fix their hair. It's just not going to work that way. But when you're doing an actual photo shoot where like you're posing them and creating a really good experience for them, but also your job is to take the photo. Little styling moments can go a long way. So have the fun with them and everything, but then also go up and say, hey, is it okay if I fix your hair? And they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, please, thank you. And then you just touch it and fix it, and it's super easy. It takes 3 seconds. Okay. Number 7, and this is a really big one, honestly. This is a little tweak that can make a big difference. It's paying attention to our light. And if this is something that maybe you're newer to photography or it's just something that confuses you, a trick that I used to do all the time when I was starting was I would put my hand out in front of me. And if you rotate around and watch your hand, you can see how the light is affecting the skin on your hand. And you can always tell like if a light is directly on you, say you're indoors, right? Say you're like inside and there's a window right in front of you. Well, if you turn around and hold your hand in front of you, you're going to be able to see that there's really good light from that window on your hand. Now, if you're staring at the window and you put your hand in front of you, you're going to see that that's backlit and that it's not as good of lighting on your hand. But you can do that anywhere. So you can do that at noon. You can do that at sunset. You can do that at sunrise. You could do that at 3 p.m. Wherever you are, grab your hand out and just make a circle and see how the light affects your hand. And you can know what the photo is going to look like before actually posing your couple or your senior or your family or whatever. Because sometimes what we do is we set up the whole pose and everything, and then it's not a good lighting situation, but we feel awkward because we've already done the work of setting them up. And so then we just take the picture anyway and we deliver that photo. But really, if we had just taken the time right before, hold out our hand, see where the best lighting is, then we could have paused, not posed them in that spot, but we're actually going to pose them in this spot, and it will be better lighting or the vision that we're trying to achieve or whatever. So that's just a good one. That's really a helpful trick. But I will say, like, the more you do it, the more you'll just intuitively know this is what the image is going to look like based on where the sun is right now. Okay. The next one is one that honestly it kind of took me a long time to figure out, longer than I'd probably like to admit, but it is a big one. It's moving your feet, not just zooming on your camera. And I think that this used to not be as big of a thing for people because zoom lenses weren't really like in as much. The 35 and the 85 millimeter were like everyone's babies with super low aperture, and it was like everyone wanted that. Now the 24 to 70 2.8 is really in. I've shot on that for ever, like for so long. And I just like have always really appreciated the ability to zoom. And I think especially for what I do as senior portraits and like I'm constantly on the go with it, I don't really want to have to switch out my lens and do all that. So I love the 24 to 70 2.8. But the difference of it is while your aperture stays whatever you set it to. So I pretty much always keep my aperture at 2.8 unless I'm doing a big landscape shot. Or if I'm doing like a group shot or something like that, obviously. But I pretty much always keep it at 2.8. Though the difference of your background, it changes based on how you zoom. So at 24 millimeters, f2.8 looks clearer and less blurry on your background. But if you zoom it in and you get around 35, 50, 70 millimeters, the same f2.8 looks much more creamy and compressed in the background. And you almost look like you're more in focus on the subject. So if you stay in one spot and zoom, it's totally fine. That's a good thing to do if you like want your images to look like that. But if you want to continue to have that like zoned in feel on the subject, then you need to actually move your body. You need to stand up, back up, shift sides, get lower, because your feet can create more like intentional compositions that if you're desiring that look. Now, if you want it to feel like a more wide shot, then of course, just use your zoom. Like that's a good thing. And I have times where I definitely do that. But I want to achieve the look that I want to achieve intentionally, not just because I'm like zooming in and out and clicking. You know what I mean? Okay. Number nine. Okay. Number 9 is using small directions for the face. So this is something that I just like have seen photographers do in the past where like they'll say like, okay, now relax. And the client just like doesn't know what to do with that. Or like, okay, now look happy. And they just like don't know how to do that in front of a camera well. So instead of like giving them like this big direction for their face, give them instead a small direction. So, okay, now I want you to breathe in and breathe out. Okay, now smile. And helping them to just take a second. Maybe they do a tiny smirk, or maybe they drop their shoulders and then tilt their chin up. Maybe they look at you with really soft eyes. Like those little prompts, they're going to know how to do that a little bit better than like looking relaxed, because they think maybe they do look relaxed. But when I tell them to breathe in and breathe out, that's helping them to relax. So give them the small directions that help you to achieve the look that you're wanting to see versus just like a big direction that they don't know how to do it. Okay, number 10. This is a big one, guys. This is a big one. A little thing that can make a big difference in our photos. I want you guys to pause for 5 seconds before you click. Okay? We're going to pause. We're going to check the background. We're going to do all the things we've already said, right? Check the hands, check the crop, check the outfit, check all of those things, and then click. And this is going to help us to not overshoot, okay? This is going to help us to actually get the images we want, not just like, oh no, I'm scared I'm not getting the images, and so I'm going to click. Because like when you know the exact shot you're trying to get, we don't need 200 versions or 20 versions of the same pose, right? Or the same like thing. We just need a couple. Like I always get more than one, right? Just in case, but we just need the right shot. And so we don't need it to be like a million clicks of that same thing. And when we pause right before, it helps us to actually have a good image in front of us and not just like almost a anxiety ridden or fearful kind of click, hope I got it. We want to have like intention with it. And then speaking of intention, number 11 is to crop with intention. And this, I think you can obviously do this when editing. You can crop in and crop out. But when you can actually do this in the moment and you can frame your subject where you actually want them in the moment, this will A, cut down your editing time so much, and B, will make you a better photographer in the end result. This happened one time. One time I had one of my associate shooters when she was still training. I had her deliver me some photos, and there were some photos from a senior session with a, what was it? I guess it was a senior session with the mom or with the dad or something. And it wasn't cropped with intention. And so, or it wasn't framed with intention, I should say. And so the subjects were like off to the side and in the lower corner. And that was really hard because of course I can crop it down, but what really needed to happen was I needed to see more of their body for it to actually be framed in the center well, the way that that photo should have been. So it just wasn't intentional in the moment. So you need to ask yourself, like, where do I want them in the frame? Do I want the subject centered? Do I want the subject off to the side? Do I want the subject with tons of negative space and I want it to be like more of the landscape and they're in the little part of it? But intentionally framing your subject or cropping your subject immediately makes your photos feel more editorial, more elevated, and really just like less random. Like we want it to be where we are doing things with intention. Okay, guys, that was about it for this episode. These are just tiny little things that can develop into habits that make a big difference in your photos and ultimately in your galleries, and then ultimately even more in your work as a whole. So none of them are too hard and none of them require new gear, but it does help us to just slow down and shoot with more intention. And that I feel like is the word of the day and of this episode. I feel like I've said it a million times, but we just want to be intentional about growing and becoming better photographers. So if you try try any of these on your next shoot, message me at Alex Blake Photo because I want to hear it. I want to hear how it went, what you think. And yeah, if you have any others, message me and let me know. Okay, thanks for hanging out with me, guys, today. I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye.